Hello friends, welcome to Knowledge House. Let's analyze today's the Hindu newspaper that is of dated 8th of August. I welcome you all to this video. We'll be giving importance to articles only that are important from a UPSC civil service exam perspective. So let's start. So the first article is about the Benami Transaction Prohibition Act, the amendment, the article says that the amended Benami Transaction Prohibition Act of 1988 came into force in November 2016. In all, 24 Benami Transaction Prohibition Units, that is Benami Prohibition Units, have been set up under the Income Tax Department across India. And department has so far made many attachments including flats, vehicles, etc. And this amounts to around 3,500 crore. And the article is titled Benami, that is prosecution under the Benami Act is stuck. So the reason is special courts have not been set up. So under this amendment act, the act provides that the central government, in consultation with the chief justice of the respective high court, will establish special courts through notification, and such courts are to be constituted to ensure that the trials are conducted as expeditiously as possible, and any endeavor shall be made, or every endeavor shall be made by the special court to conclude the trial within 6 months from the date of filing of the complaint. So that's all about this particular article. Moving on to the next one, it is regarding the ban of oxytocin. So the DTAB, that is Drug Technical Advisory Board, this is the highest decision-making body when it comes to drug control and various other aspects in India. So this works under the central government, that is Drug Control Organization. So let's analyze what exactly this is. So recently, the central government banned, or rather prohibited, the retail sale of oxytocin, which is a hormone about which we discussed yesterday. And and recently, that is yesterday, Drug Technical Advisory Board, that is DTAB, of the has recommended to the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, please note it of Health and Family Welfare, that the ban on the retail sale of the life-saving drug oxytocin may be lifted. So that's all about the main news. But while it recommended the lifting of the ban, the DTAB has not said anything about the ministry's decision that only the single PSU, that is Karnataka Antibiotics and Pharmaceuticals Limited, this is the only company that was allowed under the previous notification to manufacture the supply and drug across the country. So when the DTAB recommended that to lift this particular ban, no comment has been made on who else can produce and supply this the thing. So I hope you understood this. So moving on to the next one, or rather, let's look into some facts about DTAB. So this is the highest decision-making body on the technical matters related to drugs, and it is constituted as per the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940. It is a part of the Central Drug Control Organization under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Please note it. The Central Drug Standards Control Organization is the national regulatory body for Indian pharmaceutical companies and medical devices. And within the CDSCO, the Drug Control General of India regulates the pharmaceutical and medical devices under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And the DGCI, that is Drug Controller General of India, is advised by DTAB and DCC, that is Drug Consultative Committee. So that's all about this particular article, and we have analyzed some facts about it. And moving on to the next article, it is regarding the adultery law, about which we discussed yesterday, that it is an archaic law, and the gender equality fact is not respected here. So right now, the Supreme Court has said that the adultery law violates the dignity of women. So Supreme Court made a comment that the time has changed since it is commonly accepted that it is the man who is the seducer and not the woman. The Supreme Court said on Thursday, while questioning if the archaic law on adultery would stand the test of right to equality. So Mr. Kalishuram Raj, who was representing the petitioner, made a comment that the penalizing adultery and jailing citizens for engaging in a consensual sex is a different thing altogether, and there is no compelling state interest or even a valid rationale for the state to do so. So this sounds fair. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. It is regarding the bill on SCST, about which we discussed yesterday, and we discussed around the three main things that are that the amendment is likely to bring about. So I request you all to please watch that video so that you won't miss, or for those who have seen it, it will be a good revision part. So the Home Minister Rajnath Singh told on the Lok Sabha on Thursday that the centre intended to get the amendment of the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act passed in this session of the Parliament. Anyway, that's there is no nothing, or there is nothing to be more looked into in this particular article, because all these kind of are political statements. So let's move on to the next one. It is regarding the statutory status for the backward commission panel. So Lok Sabha on Thursday unanimously passed the 123rd Constitutional Amendment Bill, 123rd Constitutional Amendment Bill for providing the National Commission for Backward Classes that is making the National Commission for Backward Classes as a constitutional body. So let's have a look at how this constitutional amendment, or what are some important facts to be remembered when it comes to a constitutional amendment bill. So it can be introduced in any house of the parliament. One, it can be introduced in any house of the parliament. So constitutional amendment bill can be introduced both as a government bill or as a private bill. So if it's a private bill, then it first has to be first examined at the instance to be and recommended for introduction by the Committee on Private Members Bills and Resolutions. So I repeat it once again. First is, it can be introduced in any house of the parliament, and it can be introduced by private member or from the government part. And if it is by the private member, then it has to be examined in the first instance and recommended for introduction by the Committee on Private Bills, that is Committee on Private Members Bills and Resolutions. And prior recommendation of the president is not necessary. That's another important thing to be noted. And constitutional amendment bills are not treated as money bills or financial bills, even if they have some provisions related to them. This is important, and I mentioned all this because this can be a question for prelims or any kind of MCQ kind of thing. So, and if there is a disagreement between the two houses on a constitutional amendment bill, there is no provision of joint sitting to resolve this deadlock. So these are the important things to be noted. I'll repeat the whole once again. So it can be introduced in any house of the parliament. That is point to be noted, number one. And it can be introduced by private member or from the government part. And if it is a private member, it has to be recommended for introduction at the first instance by the Committee on Private Members Bills and Resolutions, and that's the second thing to be noted. And third is, they are not treated as money bills or financial bills, even if they have some provisions related to them. And the last thing to be noted is, if there is a disagreement between the two houses on the constitutional amendment bill, there is no provision for joint sitting to resolve that particular deadlock. So that's all about this article. Moving on to the next one, it is regarding the NRC issue again, and we have been reading about this for the last couple of weeks, and let's look into what it is. So it is regarding the SOP, that is Standard Operating Procedure. So for those whose names are missing from the NRC draft, a new SOP is likely to be devised. So SOP will go into the aspects of disposal of claims and objections, so that a reasonable time and opportunity is given for the applicants. I'll repeat it once again, that the SOP will go into the aspect of disposal of claims and objections, so that reasonable time and opportunity will be given to applicants. The circle officers or block development officers would be asked to give personal hearings to the applicants even after they have exhausted the option of filing claims and objections. That's all about this particular portion. Anyway, the applicants left out of the NRC may be given personal hearing under the fresh SOP that has been devised by the Home Ministry. So who devised this? Home Ministry. So the Registrar General of India and the Home Ministry are exploring several ways to provide adequate opportunity to the 40 lakh of those who are missing from the final NRC draft. So there has also been a comment that by the Registrar General that there may be many applicants who may not understand the process and the required documentation. So we have to see that every person has a right to right information and the right instance. That's all about this particular article. Moving on to the next one, it is a international affair related news. So this is the China has said, or the Chinese Commerce Minister has said, the US trade war policy will not work. So and he also made a comment that we hope, or I am quoting his words, we hope that the trade policy makers in the US will be cool-headed and listen to the voice of the US consumers and also pay attention to the voice of the international community. So ultimately the US has some additional tariffs are imposed on the Chinese goods. So what happens is the cost of the Chinese imports in the US will rise. So ultimately it is affecting the consumers of such products. So that's the point the commerce minister has emphasized here. And the US has no regard for the world. His uh, that's what he has commented, that the US has no regard for the world. Playing both soft and hardball with China will not have any effect and will only serve to disappoint the countries and territories opposed to trade war. So that's all about this article. Moving on to the next one, it is regarding the Federal Reserve of the US, and Fed poses on course for September rate hike. That's what this article is titled about. The US Federal Reserve kept the interest rate unchanged on Wednesday, but characterized the economy as strong, keeping the central bank on track to increase the borrowing cost in September. So the Fed said on economic growth has been rising strongly, and the job market has continued to strengthen while inflation has remained under the target. So that's all about this particular article. Anyway, if there was something like, if there was a rate hike or reduction in the rate, definitely that will have some impact on our stock exchanges, and that may or may not ultimately result to further weakening of Indian rupee against the US dollar. So that is to be noted here, and I recommend all of you to look into how this exactly happens. So that's all about this particular article. Moving on to the next one, it says that the private sector investment may see rise. So the article says that the value of the new project announcements by the private sector rose for the first time in 2 years in June 2018 quarter. That's what the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy has showed through a detailed study. Within this, the bulk of the announcement were made by foreign companies. That's to be noted here. And while the new project announcement in themselves does not portray the complete picture of investment activity in the country, since many of these projects may not reach completion, analysts do say that such an announcement reveal the intent and mood for the immediate future. That is to be noted here. So simply the investment may see a rise. That kind of a fact or that kind of an analysis is not complete, because they may or may not reach completion. That's what this article says. So moving on to the last article of today, Kerala defeating Nipah is a payoff on social spending. That's what a noted economist Vinod Thomas has said. So the quick and effective response to the recent Nipah outbreak in Kerala is a clear demonstration of benefits of investment in education and health over a long period. That's what the development economist who has well experienced in World Bank and various other international bodies has said. And the natural disasters often demand imaginative responses, and for that we need as a root education and inclusiveness. We see that in societies where there are very that are very divided, the impact of natural disasters is that much worse, and when the divisions are less, the resilience to deal with the crisis is better. That's what he said, warning that the social disharmony could derail India's growth ambitions. I think this requires a lot of we have to really look into this point. So that's all about today's Hindu newspaper. I sincerely thank all of you for watching this video, and if you like this video, please hit the like button and do share it with your friends. And you can follow us on Telegram and various kinds of PDF. You can log on to our blog, that is www.knowledgehouse.co, and we'll be coming up with more interesting and compelling videos. So please subscribe our channel so that you won't miss any more updates from us. So thank you very much once again for watching this video. Have a nice day.